Hi, and welcome to the Cornelius Seed Podcast. Thank you for checking out our podcast. Established in 1935, we're an American-owned and family-owned independent seed company. And we're excited to partner with you in our new podcast by bringing you 5 generations of agricultural experience and decades of industry expertise. In our podcasts, you can expect to gain valuable and timely information to aid you in making decisions for your operation. We'll keep things simple and informative, and much like our motto, Planet Profit. Welcome back to the Cornelius Seed Podcast. In today's episode, we have a special focus on corn and soybean traits. As a seed corn company, we understand the importance of providing our customers with the best options for their operation. And recently, we received some feedback expressing some confusion about the various corn traits available in the industry, what their differences are, and how to effectively manage them. So in this episode, we aim to address those concerns and provide a comprehensive overview of some of the hottest traits out there right now, as well as practical insights on their management. To guide us through this exploration, I'm joined by James Cornelius, co-owner of Cornelius Seed, and he also makes up part of the 5th generation. Welcome, James.
Welcome.
Hey, so before we get going, and I want to step back a little bit. I know it's the first time I have you on this podcast, and want to get folks to know you for those that don't. You know, I think on paper you're formally known as the plant manager, and I know you're a member of the product selection team, and you're an agronomist and CCA, and there's a lot going on. So we can just quickly dive into your background and kind of tell us about, what you studied and what you do and how long you've been with us.
Sure. Yeah. So, people joke with their timeline whether or not when you kids and taking a break in college counts. So yeah, started helping with Rogan detasseling at 11 or whatnot. So been around quite a few years around that with detasseling Rogan. Did about 10 or 11 years through into college and whatnot. But also at college studied and majored in agronomy and ag systems technology. So kind of some engineering along with the agronomy, which works well for servicing the equipment and installing new stuff into the seed conditioning towers and different equipment aspects. But pretty much on a round the calendar, year to year, is just overseeing a lot of the production of the corn, conditioning of the corn, helping with product selection on the corn side, and then as well as dabbling a little bit into the marketing and sales side. So always lots going on in a mid-sized family business.
That's for sure, and I know you're super busy, and so I really appreciate you making some time this morning. I think you're being generous on not going into the whole list of what you do, and that you didn't mention you come out of Iowa State University. I mean, that's a cyclone I have here on the phone with me. But
well, yeah, pretty much. Iowa State's going to be your ag degree that matters, right? Some people say that Illinois and Purdue are good, which they are, but
Yep.
I'm definitely Iowa State. Cardinal Gold runs through the blood, being multiple generations, also AGR as well. So,
and that's the AGR piece is deep in the roots too, as well, right?
Yep. So 3 generations legacy there, and I don't know. Most of my males in my family right now have actually are AGRs. So
that's awesome. I when I talk to folks about just what we do and what you do, I usually explain to them that you oversee the process that makes sure that there's that super high quality going into the bag, and that's the benefit of being very detail oriented. And I know the production team, some of the warehouse staff, it's always fascinating when I think back about starting here, how there's even part-time labor that whenever they're going through helping out in the warehouse, that gets passed on to them, which is really cool, because I know everybody cares about what goes in there, which ultimately translates to our customers. But I can talk about that all day. Let's just jump into talk about these traits, and I think how I want to cover it for those listening is really talk about the main ones that are out now that are offered by most of those in the industry. some of the ones that we carry are not, which is my favorite part of being an independent seed company. So we'll start in talking about, VT Double Pro Rib specifically. We know that is DP Rib here in house. Just give us a high level overview of what it is, what it does, modes of action, and all that good stuff, please.
Yeah, so the VT Double Pro is Double Pro as we call it in standard jargon, but basically it's an above ground only control and has multiple modes of action against corn earworm, corn borer, and then a few other broadleps. Fall armyworm and earworm has some activity on it, a little bit on. Um, I guess that one doesn't have black cutworm, but it's your old corn borer control, and then when they added the pro part, gave another corn borer control and gave pretty darn good control of some earworm and fall armyworm, which was a great step for keeping aflatoxin downs for molds creating in the year at the end of the season. So
What's how long would you say that's kind of been active in the market now, roughly?
Well, I think was that SmartStax and Double Pro kind of came on about the same time, roughly, and it's about the time I got out of college. So they've probably been around for almost 10 years now, I suppose, in the market. Um, we start hearing about things 4 or 5 years ahead of when they're actually going to hit the market. As they start talking about it at the trait supplier level. So I usually get kind of fuzzy on when they actually hit the market because, otherwise things like Duracade or this actually RNAi Technology and SmartStax PRO, shoot, I've been hearing about that for 10, 15 years too, it seems like. But when governments have to approve it, sometimes it's a slower process.
Oh, that's for sure. I don't know that can be a whole series of podcasts there too. That's in regards just to this Double Pro, what herbicide tolerance does it have?
That would be your standard conventional herbicides, but as far as a trait added one, Roundup or glyphosate tolerance is the only additional herbicide tolerance that it has.
Okay, relatively newer into the available for use for everyone. I think it would be Trecepta or Trecepta RIB Complete. I think that's a good segue onto that one. What can you tell us about Trecepta?
Yeah, Trecepta RIB Complete is a pretty comprehensive above ground insect control system. Basically, you take Double Pro and then you add the Viptera gene, which that's a Syngenta trait, and Viptera is probably, as far as a effectiveness of trait goes, especially in the broad lep world, so your earworms, your fall armyworms, black cutworm, um, there's nothing else that's better than it. So adding it on top of the Double Pro, which is already a very good control of most above ground pests, really makes that a pretty solid product control everything for you. Double Pro had a little bit of activity on earworm, but when you add that Viptera trait to it, it's immediate lights out. It only takes a couple bites for the insect to wind up eating too much and perish. So rather than even having a kernel or two damaged, just eating the silk can cause the insects to get enough the protein that it kills them. So very powerful trait, and glad to have it be a part of more trait packages. I think Trecepta really makes a big play out east and down south, where they have even more western bean and fall armyworm, or more multiple generations down south. Here we obviously have everything, all of those as well, but actually just had a field have some infestation of fall armyworm yesterday that we need to take care of. But anyway, yeah, it's a good add-on to Double Pro, and really makes for a solid above ground control for just rotated acres.
So in that, just because I think even for me hearing you talk about it, I start thinking, all right, am I replacing the Double Pro with Trecepta? Am I placing it in different fields just in case I've got some some Western bean some black cutworm. Um, how do we navigate that? Do we look at it as a replacement or a companion?
I think long term, what'll happen is it'll probably replace Double Pro in the market as the breeding uh, platforms focus. I think it's going to be a long time before Double Pro is gone. Um, as far as selecting where to go, if you have concerns about those fatty worms, then I'd say go ahead and use it. If you know you have the pressures, some of those insects don't overwinter and actually just get blown in each year. So it's kind of a year in year out deciding factor. I guess most of them actually do blow back in from storms, but we've been having some storms blow early on. We had stuff blow stuff up from the south. So um, anyway, that'd be the thing to consider is most on that. But I think at the end of the day, the difference in those controls, um, you might still be better off just focusing on the genetic base. For the rotated acre, they're both only uh, tolerance or additional tolerances is Roundup. Um, so I think at the end of the day, if one genetic is actually a lot better for your field and you're picked between a Trecepta and a Double Pro, I'd probably go with a genetic base unless you have real concern about those fatty worms. So
Okay. Well, and let's move on to kind of that next here, and I'll start off with SmartStax. SmartStax RIB Complete, how it's formally known. There, when I think of SmartStax, I think about obviously the corn rootworm, and I'm guessing folks are pretty familiar with it, but I just don't want to jump into it. Then that way we can segue to the next tier after that. So SmartStax.
yeah, so as I kind of referenced earlier, SmartStack came out about the time that I graduated from college. It was late 2000s, early 2010s when it really got a foothold. Um, that was kind of a game changer at the time. What it did is it took the VT3 um, or Triple Pro traits of Bayer and combined them with the Herculex Extra, which was the above and below ground control for Dow at the time, put them together. And then it was the first, I think, multiple mode of action for below ground pests and really just up the game for control against corn rootworm. Still a very great solid product. We are seeing spots where super high infestation levels. Actually in some of our sales geography, northeast Iowa, north central Iowa, a little bit, in southwest Wisconsin, northwest Illinois, um, really right where it seems like corn borer or corn rootworm sees its home. Of course, that lays on top of lots and lots of corn on corn acres due to livestock production needs. But yeah, it's still a very solid product. As individual components, some of the rootworms are starting to overpower the traits, but short of the new technology, which I'm assuming you'll segue into, SmartStax PRO, that's still a great option for uh, corn on corn acres to keep control of insects. And the Herculex package also does add Liberty Link tolerance to this, so it's got glyphosate and glufosinate, um, whereas that Double Pro and Trecepta only have glyphosate.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good call out. Thank you. Just to recap here on my notes, SmartStax RIB Complete. That one's got just two modes of action for corn rootworm control. And
Mm-hmm.
so now, if we're moving into those fields that are 30 years corn on corn, and just really heavy pressure. It's my understanding we've SmartStax Pro. Let's talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah, so SmartStack PRO brings in a new novel mode of action against corn rootworm, and we'd reference the RNAi technology. So that's RNA interference. So basically, little biology. If everybody thinks back, I'm sure they can remember a DNA splits in half, and then if it's coded right, that can be the RNA rather than just DNA. That'll then go and be the instructions to create proteins for cells to function and operate. Well, what this does is they specifically targeted a uh, RNA RNA strand in the corn rootworm that is pretty much just to that insect. And what it does is basically the protein or that's created in the plant. When it gets absorbed into that bug, it goes in the cells, and then when that messenger RNA is going to make a protein, this binds to it. So it interferes with that process. That protein is not created in the insect, and then that results in the insect actually dying due to a deficiency. Um, it does wind up being a slower kill as compared to the uh, typical cry proteins that have bound to the mid gut of the insect and then basically poked holes in its stomach and then created it to get sick, not eat, and then also die. Um, so the great thing about this, if there was any resistance built up to the cry proteins, this one's different mode of action, different way to kill. It's planned to not be sold by itself. There'll probably always be in the near future a cry protein, at least one or two stacked on top of it. Um, that way, it isn't the only thing carrying the load. Like I said, as far as also it has activity on later stages of the insect's uh, growth. So there's the different instars. Um, some of the cry proteins don't work as well later, but this one doesn't seem to have that issue. Another thing with it is, when you have extremely high pressures and whatnot, we still recommend the use of either some foliars to try and reduce beetle bombing, which can have good effect if you get a big enough area sprayed. If it's just your 140-acre patch and a 10,000 acre surrounding and no one else sprays, it's still better than not doing it, but has lessened effect. And honestly, probably the best thing, still by far the best way to fight corn rootworm is to rotate away from corn. But the hard thing is, like I said, if you need silage or whatnot, it's pretty hard to not keep corn in your rotation.
So we're essentially, sounds like, I mean, if soybean rotation is not an option, this is a great way to help control that long-term population of corn rootworm for those acres.
We've basically have seen beetle emergence out of this crop go to almost zero, if not pretty much zero. So that is pretty powerful to. I mean, if best way, that's the whole purpose of beetle bombing, is you eliminate the females from laying eggs. Well, if females never exist, then we're doing the same thing, but sooner, and you have less escapes.
That's definitely true. So one interesting thing here, just as I'm looking back at it, is it does not have the Western bean cutworm mode of action where Trecepta does. Is that right?
Yeah, so the Western bean cutworm, there used to be some suppression listed underneath, I believe, the Herculex trait, which is in SmartStax, the Herculex 1 above ground, but over the years that had either waned or just didn't have the suppression they did, whereas Trecepta has that Viptera trait, and it has extremely good action on Western bean.
Makes sense there to me on that. Now, just to kind of recap on these two sets, the Double Pro and the Trecepta, those are, we'll think about them as offering you above ground control, right? And where the SmartStax and the SmartStax Pro with RNAi gives us above and below. One of the things that I often actually wonder about is there any other comparisons in the industry with that, like, that's what I guess what we would call similar, on par, or equivalent to in the SmartStax world?
There are other products. Right now, basically, SmartStax Pro has the best level of protection. You have things like different combinations of Duracade out there, whether it's Duracade with or without Viptera, and the Duracade is definitely a step up from Agrisure corn rootworm trait. So it's those two stacked together. Does really good things, and in some super high in high concentrations of rootworm, high pressures. Viptera probably doesn't quite have the oomph that SmartStax does, and SmartStax Pro is even better than that. Other ones out there, you got your Acre Max Extreme and your Chrome products. Uh, Basically, Chrome is Acre Max Extreme, I believe, and then they actually dialed down um, they wind up changing the Herculex trait, and it results in a little different level of expression at certain times throughout. So I've always questioned that. Uh, why would we want less expression for a wortworm trait? But it's easier to breed with, and that's why they've seen some gains in genetics. But as far as overall effectiveness, I think SmartStax Pro is definitely better than both of those if you need the extra control. Um, there's some other things here on the horizon as well. Um, you might hear about Vorseed, which is coming out from Corteva. That's basically another version of SmartStax Pro with the Enlist trait on it, and they're a few years out from having a commercial large-scale launch, I believe. Maybe you'll see some stuff trickle in, and as well, there's also VT4 Pro coming coming out of the Bayer pipeline, which was something they used in South America, and it's basically triple Pro with the RNAi technology. So another thing that I question, in our sales geography, we have lots of heavy infestation of corn rootworm. I think that's still not a product for you. If you don't have much corn rootworm pressure, then it's possibly a way to save some cost on inputs and put it in. But um, one thing there is we've already been looking at the genetics in this portfolio, and there's some tremendous yield power in it. We just will want to not put it on consecutive year corn on corn or areas where likelihood is high of um, getting extra rootworm pressure. So definitely some product placements for that, but need to manage it. So
Okay, well that's important. I appreciate that, and I also realize that we're covering quite a bit, and I'll make sure that I I link it on the episode notes, just some of the information we're talking about, and why I ask that is, when I look at first trials or plot results, I you always wonder what's this similar to, and Chrome is one that now I know I can kind of stack that up against SmartStax and kind of see what those results look like. But as you said, that's field by field, and you really shouldn't go through and if you don't have the pressure, use a trait unnecessarily. So we've talked about those that I would say come from the Bayer Monsanto legacy camp. Um, a new one that I'd like to kind of segue into, if it's timely, is PowerCore. Uh, that's coming out of the Corteva neck of the woods, and I know that here this coming sales year, I believe we're going to have 4 or 5 SKUs of it. I'm sorry if I'm oversharing, but what can you tell us about PowerCore?
yeah, so PowerCore is a pretty great product coming down the line. The best way to think about it is essentially you take Double Pro and then you add the Enlist trait to it. Similar concept of the Enlist trait that was in soybeans, except modified a little bit so that it works in corn. Some unique thing that they found out, obviously they're trying to get higher rates of 2,4-D tolerance in corn. That's the whole game of Enlist. But when they got it into corn, they also noticed that they had FOP herbicide tolerance. So still can't use DIMs on it, but the good thing about that uh, is you can use another activity on some grass or use it. I guess if there's a chance that you're doing corn on corn for some reason didn't go with a Double Pro or a below ground trait package, but you could use a Sure, as it's a FOP herbicide to get rid of some of that volunteer corn. But do not use the DIMs because you will kill it.
Okay.
Also has glyphosate tolerance and glufosinate tolerance, so Roundup and Liberty. So lots of potential here for different herbicide control measures um, in your portfolio to use. So
Well,
pretty excited about it. And yeah, like you said, so we've had one PowerCore product in our lineup. We've been waiting on Mexico to approve the trait combination for the refuge component to this product, so that way the refuge will have Roundup Liberty, 2,4-D, and FOPS tolerance. Because if you don't have the herbicide tolerance in the refuge in the bag, you even though it's in the major, you can't spray it, right? So we needed that approval. Mexico's finally approved that, got that this spring. So we had already decided that we were going to make a basically broad scale launch in full volume with or without the refuge in a bag, just due to the some new genetics that came access to us with this trade on it, as well as the existing genetics that already had it. But just a great trait to add herbicide options and bring some more competition to the market.
Well, and I definitely agree. And so to be clear, so that I understand and those listening understand, this coming sales year, 2024, growing season, we will see the PowerCore with refuge in the bag.
That's correct. So
Okay.
The C6552 PC is what we've had as our PowerCore product in the past. That the new nomenclature will be for refuge in a bag. I believe it's PCE, so PowerCore Enlist. But the PCE will have the refuge in a bag in the bag, and that will be the only way that we will be providing it to growers.
Okay. And I agree. That's a particular number. So I helped Janie kind of look at crunch data and third-party plot data, and that one just really sticks to me because year over year, I mean, the last 2 years, it has just done exceptionally well at plots. We're talking 10, 15, 20 bushel advantage. And I'm just looking at the firstseedtests.com website. Anybody can go and check that out. I encourage you. You can kind of see the footprint it covers and the soils it's on, and it's just consistently ranking in the top 10 and very often, top 3. In our plot out there, the show plot we call it, I also noticed that one seems to be, it feels like a darker green and bigger broad leaf. And no agronomist here, I'm just an IT guy, but that just from my own eye, it just seems different, and kind of excited that it offers so many options for herbicide tolerances. So with that one, would you say that is just strictly an above ground control, or does that fall into above and below ground?
Oh yeah, so PowerCore Enlist itself is only above ground control. So you're really not going to. I mentioning having the FOPs to take care of volunteer corn, but really, I think if you have any rootworm pressure at all, you shouldn't be using it there. You should be moving towards the SmartStack or SmartStack PRO.
Okay.
Or depending on your situation too, we do have a Duracade product or two in the lineup. If it matches up with your soil types to work well there, it could be a lower cost option. But just above ground bugs.
Okay. No, well, that's good. Then that's a good segue to move into. So that, like I mentioned earlier, that comes from the Corteva neck of the woods, and now onto some of those Syngenta traits. I think the first I want to get into is Agrasure above. I know here recently they went through like a renaming of them. That one would have been old 3120. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, please. And then kind of what can you tell us about that trait?
Yeah, so Agrasure above was just what you said. Previously was called 3120, either 3120 EZ. It basically has the old 3000 GT, which was BT11 and Herculex 1, so the above ground Herculex control. So that gives it some control of multiple corn borer controls, a little bit of earworm control, and some fall armyworm. But yeah, they just decided after some checking with the industry and whatnot, that rename would probably make sense. Their numbering system was completely logical as far as it just told you exactly how many controls of the different type of insects in the name. But after things were getting a little more complex, and they decided to change. So it is what it is. The Agrosure above, which will be coded AA, good option for just above ground control, and if you're not overly pressured with earworms. So
Okay, so that's the highlight there is the earworm. Earlier you mentioned EZ, and I just for those listening, that is Syngenta's way of identifying that it's got refuge in the bag. Is that right?
it was.
Oh,
So now the products, basically the nomenclature are just going to essentially assume they have refuge in a bag for all the products that they can, whereas the ones that do not have refuge in a bag have a different nomenclature. I think they'll be refuge advanced or refuge renew. Um, refuge advanced is a Dow thing or Corteva thing, but so yeah, we currently kept the easy on it just to keep consistency. We may or may not continue to do that to follow their specific guidelines on how to name the traits. But the interesting thing is some of these traits that Syngenta have are, as far as corn borer goes, are equivalent to the other ones. And then as far as Viptera, I already mentioned that's actually probably the best trait against. It is the best trait against black cutworm and earworm that's available. And always keep in mind that just because it's a Syngenta trait does not mean it's a Syngenta genetic. It could be across different breeding platforms or other things like that.
Oh goodness! Now that's a whole nother podcast going into genetics. So when I think about Agrosure above, and if I'm hearing you right, I would call the parity on that is similar to where you would place a VT Double Pro, but it will give you a mode of action on black cutworm that the VT Double Pro does not.
Yeah, it's got that Herculex trait in it, so it's
Yep.
got some activity in the black cutworm. As we talked about I guess I'll segue to talk about from the above Agrosure above. Then they Double Pro took the step to Trecepta. So uh, going to the 3220, which is now called just straight Viptera. So it actually has that BT11 and Herculex 1 and Viptera trait. So that one it's more equivalent to Double Pro as far as certain, but it's probably even closer to the Trecepta as far as earworm control. And then they also have what's called Viptera Z3. So that is very similar to Trecepta, except it also has liberty tolerance. And so all these Agrosure traits have glyphosate and liberty tolerance both that we're talking about today. And then they have Viptera Z3, which is pretty minor out there in the marketplace, but that's most equivalent to a Trecepta as far as 3 corn borer traits.
So I'm a visual person, so the way I'm almost kind of hearing you is, it seems like that Viptera is kind of right smack in the middle of the Double Pro and the Trecepta, but offering some other options there. So then, what would you say? So that's also the above ground. What would be a segue from the Viptera?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, then that Z3 having even more modes of action on the fatty worms, but after you move, that's kind of their whole package. On the above ground, they have some legacy traits of like 3110 and 3111 that we still have a 3110 in the lineup, but as far as moving forward, those would get pretty few and far between. And they don't have refuge in a bag and not as many stacked traits, so they're not as great to move forward with. As far as going from just above ground, which we've been talking about, to going above and below ground, I guess the start would be Agrosure Total, which we never really launched too many of those. That was basically Herculex Extra with 3000 GT. kind of similar to Acre Max Extra. Then when you stepped up to Duracade, so you basically removed the Herculex rootworm, but you had the corn borer, Agrosure corn borer, and then also have Duracade stacked on top of each other, and that comes with 2 corn borer traits, and then so that's kind of the next step up to where it's really fairly good product in moderate to low pressures. A corn rootworm does pretty darn good. And then you take the step up to DuracadeViptera, which that has everything Duracade as we just talked, and then you add Viptera to it. So then it really steps up your game for that earworm and black cutworm and western bean controls. And then the last trait, which again you'll probably not see much of in the market, but it was DuracadeViptera Z3. So that adds that pro portion from the double pro and Trecepta to it to give three above ground controls for corn borer, and then also for earworm, black cutworm, stuff like that. So probably the most fully loaded, among the most fully loaded trait out there, as far as above ground and with solid below ground. But just hasn't been too many products that have launched with that trait combination.
Okay, so it seems to be relatively new and what's so just remind me there what really sets that one apart from the rest.
You're saying the so Viptera takes that step up to have more earworm control, and then Z3 adds another control for earworm and black cutworm, and also another corn borer control. I think the Z3 and Vip is something kind of similar to. So the Viptera Z3 and then Duracade Viptera Z3, those are both ones that farther south, or especially in South America or stuff like that, where they get way more generations of these fall armyworms and black cutworms and stuff like that. I guess you only get one black cutworm, but fall armyworm can have like, we complain maybe we'll get like 2 generations here, fall armyworm and corn borer, but in like say Brazil or whatnot, they can have 6 or 8 or all. I guess that'd be all year round. I guess it was the southern United States. They can have like up to 6 or 7 generations in their growing season. So it's a lot more struggle down there. So they really need that stacked control.
Okay, and just then in recapping here, and what says when we're talking about Agrosure above Viptera, Duracade, and Duracade Viptera, that's coming out of this what I call the Syngenta camp, and those are their tolerance is just glyphosate and Liberty Link, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then the PowerCore that gave us glyphosate, Liberty Link, and then 2,4-D on top of that. I feel like I'm missing one more.
FOPS.
FOPS. There you go.
Took me a long time to remember which exactly that was, and I reference Assure too because obviously that being a Corteva product, they promote it right alongside it. I believe there is more FOPS herbicides that it has tolerance to, but you just need to double check the label on that.
Okay, and then moving on to the Bayer camp, we got the Double Pro and the Trecepta, and those two fellas are just giving us the glyphosate control.
Yep.
Tolerance. And then when we shift up to if you need manage some more things, you're looking at SmartStax PRO with RNAi and SmartStax, and those are just glyphosate and Liberty Link. All right, there's a lot here. I mean, I can see why when folks are making these decisions, it has my head spinning, and I look at this stuff not as much as you guys do, but
yeah, and we haven't even really talked about the Corteva products of Acre Max and Acre Max Extreme and Chrome and all those others in depth, but that's just an entire another world of traits yet to be discussed. But really, what those are is all just I mentioned Chrome's got a little bit of a re-engineering to it, but all the other ones are actually line up similar to Agrosure products. and actually more like AgriSure Total is what it kind of lines up close to. So
Okay. Well, and we this last week we were at a meeting with what they call the seed partner meeting, and with Bayer specifically, and we're seeing that there's just so much technology over the next 5 years that's going to get launched, and I believe the quote was something around, in the next 5 years we will see the equivalent of what was launched in the last 25 years. And that innovation is amazing, but it's also sometimes a little bit scary, and sometimes it's a little bit complex. Um, as we sort that out for folks, or if you're allowed to give a little teaser of what do you kind of know is coming down the pipeline here in this next 5 years as it relates to corn.
yeah, so I had actually mentioned 4-seed. I maybe misspoke earlier. That I don't know that actually. I don't think that has the Enlist trade in, and I think it's actually PowerCore Ultra Enlist, which will be coming down the road, and that has um, the Enlist herbicide tolerances in corn. So those are things that Corteva is going to bring out. There's certain things that we currently have access to, and other things that they're working to modify agreements so that we can. The other things that are coming out, I mentioned VT4 Pro. That'll be out in the market a little bit in some of the internal Bayer brands this year, doing some more stuff. They're doing a few more trials on whether putting 1250 rate of insecticide on it is significant enough to need that or not. I don't see that need. I think the more important thing is that you don't put VT4 Pro on acres that it shouldn't be on. They've branded their short corn system Precion, and that's actually a global term, I guess, moving forward. But that'll be bringing all kinds of, like I said, the different versions of short corn, either natural breeding selection or GMO version. Pretty excited about what shorter corn can do for reducing lodging in the future. Bayer also actually has a new rootworm trait coming and some new herbicide tolerances coming. But as you get to those things, we're talking at least end of the decade, if not into the 30s.
Okay.
Whereas the other ones I talked about for Syngenta and Corteva. So those are pretty exciting to see. I think the reality there is we had this huge slowdown in trait launches, mostly due to the amount of time it took for governments to approve them and whatnot. Now, some of that's either been ironed out, that governments are functioning better to get that done, or also just the companies here have a better idea on how to get all the information ahead of time first, so that way it just creates any roadblocks from happening. That's really the corn things to come. Lots that can come. I think the other interesting world is soybeans.
Oh,
And
before we do, I want to jump. I was gonna show them a little bit of love too. I know Will would have let us know about it if we didn't. But you mentioned VT4 Pro. We do. Correct me if I'm wrong. We also have that in some plots out there with our customers, right? Some profit plots, and so we're getting a look at that too.
The VT4 Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we've actually been looking at products in that walk through different uh, genetic suppliers plots of that last fall, um, and got lots of data on a handful of one. Two were extraordinarily exciting for. We weren't able to launch them this year due to some production situations and whatnot, but we are very excited to be able to bring that some of those genetics out next year, as long as they get that all figured out. But
Okay.
It'll
Now,
either be that, or if they find a better version, that's even better.
great. Well, that's the beautiful part about doing what you do and what we do is, you have the opportunity to tap into all of these multi-billion research budgets, we're not just siloed to one company, but all of them. Now the Precion, I realize that's their version of short corn. I don't know
Well,
if I'm
short corn's a part of it, but
a
it's
part of
not
it.
only short corn, Juan.
No, I get it. I get it. Well, the reason why I bring that up is didn't we sell some conventional short corns? I mean, it's not brand new to one organization, right? I mean, it's something that.
No, there's 4 different major breeding platforms that are focused on short corn. I think 2 of them have a selection model, like a more standard um, breeding or advanced breeding platforms to do natural selection and gene marking technology. Uh, but then there's, I think, at least 2 of them have a GMO down the road. Bayer's one of them. I'm not sure if Corteva has a GMO or not, but um, like I said, there's about four big breeders that currently have shorter corn in their lineup, and we the one that we have launched, that's actually one not out of the Bayer. I don't know, not sure that Bayer is actually, they haven't released any yet for commercial. They've been doing some testing and whatnot. You might have seen them in some channel plots or whatnot, but there's nothing large scale yet. So really excited on, like I said, what that can do. It's going to be a lot different flying down the road and seeing 7-foot tall corn rather than 12-foot tall corn. But what changes sometimes are good, the best option. So
yeah, that's for sure. Well, and then just before as we segue to soybeans, I just do want to make clear that these are our understanding, our speculations. As everybody knows, someone can plan for something in 2 years and it'd be 10 or it'd be 6 months. So that's the latest. It's kind of on our radar there. And I may have, or we may have said some of these terms and not the formally registered or trademarked way, but I'll be sure to put that in the podcast description note so that I can appease anybody in a suit.
Well, apparently the lawyers got a hold of you, huh?
Well,
that's kind of like the forward-looking statement slides that they have to put up beforehand, and we always are very diligent about reading through those and making sure we know.
The blink, you miss them, which is funny. So, but with that being said, the soybean was show some love. I mean, I didn't think we were gonna have to touch on them, but just last week I saw some.
Remind me what soybeans are.
They keep you out of the field when you don't need to be planting corn. That's what they are.
They are a corn rootworm mitigation plan.
That's right. We'll make Craig happy there. But so let's, for us, there's 2 main camps, and I know we haven't talked conventional. That's still a whole nother. We'll make a special podcast episode about the organic and the conventional world because we have some awesome products there, and giving folks and growers another option on who to work with. But soybeans. But what are we getting out of the Bayer camp? And let's start off with Extend.
Yeah, so I mean, the Extend technology is being able to apply dicamba to the crop and not kill the beans. Pretty big herbicide there that's very vastly used in the world. So that's been doing great things. Also helps get you some residual. Obviously, there's been discussion on the product getting sprayed then leaving the field. I think if you follow the rules, then you have very minimal issues with it. We've actually sprayed fields where there was some natural grapes on the fence line, and we sprayed it 10 feet from it, and the grapes are still alive a couple years running now. So as long as you watch your weather and do it, and that takes management, and that's a thing you have to do that we're not used to per se. But I think as we move forward to new technologies and new herbicides coming out, I think you're going to start seeing more and more of that. More restrictions based on weather patterns, wind speed, wind direction, sensitive crops. There's huge push from different organizations out there about trying to ban all of this stuff, and they're getting some traction. And we need to always remind our Congress people and other people in the government bodies to remind them that we need these products and we need them to move forward and help supply food for the world. So that's enough of the soapbox there. But it's a great technology. I think the best thing that's going to happen here is the new trait packages coming down the road. It's just they're not here yet. So, but again, basically what Extend does is give you Roundup and dicamba tolerance in a soybean plant.
So then, what that segues perfectly into the different tolerance that Extend Flex affords you. What's the big shift between the two?
Yeah, so Extend Flex adds Liberty tolerance to the Extend platform. So you have Roundup Liberty and 2,4-D. Or so, whoa.
Oh,
Roundup Liberty and dicamba.
thank
See,
you.
like I said, so easy to do.
Yeah.
Um, Dic Extend Flex is not tolerant to 2,4-D. You will kill it if you spray it with 2,4-D. There, make sure that I didn't confuse anybody.
Well,
But
and that's one that I saw online. Someone goes, "Oh, just use 2,4-D to it. It won't kill it. It'll just stun it." And I thought, no, I'm pretty sure it'll
no,
slaughter it.
I have proof. Um, Actually, that exact situation when you have two farms that are called basically the same thing, just not really, and luckily it was only a couple acres. Um, but yeah,
Well, those are
um,
research opportunities. Is
it
how I
was
look
a
at them.
research opportunity planting soybeans into standing soybeans.
Oh, that's funny. So,
We didn't even wait.
no, that's
So
awesome.
no, so that's a great opportunity. That gives better option there for using Liberty to control things like water hemp and products, other mare's tail and whatnot. There,
Water hemp seems to be the big one that I feel like has, one, it's been an issue problematic, and once it goes, and the last thing I saw is that just one water hemp weed will put off millions of offspring, if that's the right term. Um, so it's important to keep that down. So then we move into the other camp of the Enlist E3 soybeans. Those are being a joint venture with MS Tech and Corteva specifically. Um, what does that give us, and what how's that look a little different than the Extend Flex bean?
yeah. So you want to talk about traits that took a long way to get to market, like I did um, that Duracade a while back. Enlist and Extend, boy, that was a long time coming. The only benefit to it not being launched is when the products got launched, their genetic portfolio was totally stacked from top to bottom, um, because different approvals weren't being made there. But Enlist is so there was an Enlist version that had Roundup Ready 2s in it, but they skipped that. So since it wasn't approved, the current one is the E3 Enlist E3 trait, and it is Roundup tolerant, Liberty tolerant, and 2,4-D tolerant.
Okay.
Um, Great product there. I think when you mix Roundup and 2,4-D together and go spray a field, it bummer is you should be using 20 ounces, but I tell you what, it's got some umph to it.
Okay. The I mean that those are, in my opinion, pretty straightforward there. And in your experience and just being in the industry, have you felt like one gives a different uh, yield umph over the other, or is it just come down to other factors? Too many.
I think at the end of the day, genetics are the base of everything. Current traits don't do anything to yieldability. All they do is protect or give an option to remove weeds from a field. Both of those obviously wind up with higher yields, but the trait's not actually doing it. It's the process.
Okay.
So when you start with genetic bases, I had mentioned those traits took a while to get here, so they got more generations through. Typically, when these days when you're having a new soybean launch, the new ones yield right there with them. The issue is usually just whether or not they have an agronomic hold, or there's something's a little light on white mold, or a little on sudden death, or something like that. But I think as you look at right now, in this year's products, and for sure in 2024 products, I think it doesn't matter which herbicide platform you're on. There is a fully stacked lineup from top to bottom, with solid agronomics all the way through. And as far as yieldability, I think that's where it comes back to more of the point of which genetic should be on which acre. Soybeans are a lot more adaptable than corn are to cover more broad acres, but at the end of the day, you still don't want to put some beans on wet feet or wet soils, and other ones you don't want to put on sandy. So still always takes takes looking at the genetics first. I'd say, that 2,4-D Liberty combination's pretty good at controlling weeds. But the other benefit dicamba gives you is that I believe it's 21 days of residual herbicide action. If it rains, this year that didn't help very much.
No, that's for sure. And so, there's so, like you've mentioned, so many factors tie into that. Right now, you mentioned wet and cold, and I think of then there's treatments, right? And you Pythium control, and with us, Viantis, and get on all of our corn, and that's just the beauty of being able to. I don't want to call it mix and match, but being able to select. All right, what is a fantastic treatment platform that's going to work great with all of these traits, and how can we combine them to get you the best package for your field and not just in your entire operation. I do want to note, so whenever I mention Enlist, we distribute that through I call it our P3 bag, and that's power of proven performance. So whenever, if you're looking it up, if anybody wants to see how's that yielding, how is that performing at plots or third parties, you will see that listed as P3 distributed by Cornelius Seed, and the only ones in our footprint that have that ability to distribute that product. James, we covered a ton. I know there's a lot of info here, and I know there's also a lot more we could have talked about. So I will make sure to put a chart in our podcast notes or a link to it so that people can really see, what trait technology is giving you what modes of action. And I said, I'm a visual person, and that helps me. We'll also put any other disclaimers to keep the suits happy. What's a takeaway from, especially specifically all the corn traits that we talked about, that you just want to make sure we leave our listeners with, that they keep in the back of their mind as they're thinking about next year or thinking about how they're managing this year?
Yeah, I think the big thing when you look at the corn trait world is you mentioned the ability of being independent and select the options here. Companies have been talking about how we're going to get this data, we're going to get this stuff, tell you where everything works great and all that, and make your hybrids fit your stuff. Well, fit your fields. Well, Cornelius Seed, I think, does the best of that period right now. We can do custom box sizes to match your field, so that way you run out of seed when you are done with the field. Put the new one in for the next field. We have the SmartStax PRO technology. We have the Trecepta. We have the PowerCore. We have the Duracade as another option. We have Viptera and all these products. And the big thing is, first thing is look at the genetics to match your field, then see which trait package you need to support your farming practices, and then move forward. But we are going to be having the most genetically diverse lineup starting in 2024 that we've probably had for quite a while, and just that ability to then put another seed treatment on there that there's not another seed treatment out there that does a better job than what we're putting on, and giving you the most protection for different seedling diseases. It's pretty important to have choices and be able to select the right thing for the field, and that's what we are focusing on now, not something that we're just talking about doing for the future.
I love that. That's awesome. And I just, with that being said, there is, we covered a lot of information. If there's any questions around this, I know we have an extremely talented team out in the field, the district sales managers, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't enjoy throwing the word sales manager in their title, because they're way more than that, and the know-how and their experience, the decades of experience they have, and how to help answer some of these questions, and even when they're consulted for other things that we don't have a dog in the fight in, just a really good unbiased opinion on other things. But at any rate, if you want to ask anyone a question about this, either call us here at the office and talk to James or Chuck or Will, or go to our website, corneliusseed.com, and the about section there, you can get our info. I know we have three new members of the team. We're expanding our footprint down to that southeastern part of Iowa, joining Casey Casca. He's awesome talent coming on. Then we've got John Kriegel there in central Iowa neck of the woods, who replaced Jeremy, and then up in what I would say north central Iowa, we've got Mike Preby. So anybody has any questions, give us a buzz. We'd love to help you out. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you'll just see a lot of great stuff on each one. We're not just copying and pasting everything. We put a lot of thought on what we share with you. So thank you for taking time to listen to this. This is one of our longer ones, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Well, Juan, we think
Oh.
we forgot one thing. Well, I always joke about the Preby district, as his predecessor always called it, the Western Division. But I think Craig and Will would be a little disappointed if we didn't talk about the future of the soybean pipeline too.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Something that's really cool is we've had some new trade technologies come out, and then Bayer actually. Syngenta Seed Treatments has had new AI chemistries in the seed care world. So that's part of where we got the Vianis and whatnot. And they're continuing to bring more of those products, which is awesome. So you're only going to see our seedling control being better. But then Bayer actually has a few new herbicides that are going to be coming out. Some new mode of actions, one that's even an entire new herbicide class. So that's super excited to see. I think we're going to not hold your breath on that. The earliest thing is, again, end of the decade and probably some stuff into the 2030s. But HT4, so herbicide tolerance 4 package, that's something coming hopefully the end of the decade. And that actually gives them glyphosate, dicamba, glufosinate 2,4-D, and I believe maybe a mesotrione product or metribuzin or one of them. We'll have to have the suits confirm but at that point in time, I think something like that's going to be absolutely a game changer to be able to go out and use, say, dicamba pre or early, so that way you don't have that extra heat and volatility risk, and then you come back later with like Liberty and 2,4-D and all that stuff, and we can really start doing stuff. And like I said, as well as I believe they have 2 new actual herbicides that are going to be coming out that are new, either modes of action or new chemistry classes. So super excited about the future. It can't get here soon enough as far as herbicide control goes. And again, thank you for listening today. And if you have any questions, definitely feel free to contact us.